All right. Hi, everybody. We're giving this a shot in PowerPoint today so that I can write on the screen for you since we are talking about writing. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be going through pages 13 through 17 in your textbook, so have that open next to you. And we're going to talk about Chinese characters. So the first thing on this page is the 6 classifications of Chinese characters. And I'm going to preface this video by saying some things that you heard me say last time as well, which is you're going to learn a lot of kind of subject-specific vocabulary, not subject-specific as in you're going to learn Chinese, but you're going to learn some words here like pictographs, ideograms. Those are things that you don't necessarily have to memorize or remember. I just want you to keep in mind that as we go through this, I will be telling you what's important. And today we're going to be looking at a lot of the foundations of Chinese characters and Chinese character writing. And I'll be honest, it's going to probably sound quite confusing because it's a lot of sort of theory. And it's a little bit like when someone tries to teach you the rules to a new card game, and as they're explaining it, it sounds extremely complicated. And as soon as you start playing it, it's quite simple. And that's kind of how it is with Chinese character writing. So I'm going to tell you a lot of rules. I'm going to tell you a lot of this kind of theory, this kind of foundational knowledge. And it's going to sound really confusing and really difficult. But as soon as you start actually using it, it will be fine. And it'll make a lot more sense. So if today you feel a little bit lost, that's going to be okay. You can always, ask me questions, but in general, once we actually start using these characters, it will make a lot more sense. So bear with me while we go through this. The first thing, so I have the first 4. There are 6 classifications of Chinese characters. I have the first 4 on here because these are the 4 that I think are the easiest to understand. The other 2 are a little bit abstract. But here we've got, let's see if my stylus works, pictographs. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, so we've got pictographic characters. So Chinese, as you may or may not know by now, is a pictographic language, which means it does not have an alphabet. It has characters. So you can't necessarily spell something. That does prove difficult when it's something, you come across a word you don't know. It's not like a word you can kind of sound out phonetically. We do use, of course, like pinyin, and that helps us, but you won't actually see pinyin very much once we get out of the basics. I mean, you'll see it throughout our textbook because to teach you how to pronounce the characters. But pinyin is just the spelling of the sound. It's also how we type, but we'll get to that later. You're always going to see the characters. So a pictograph, of course, is something that represents the thing. It tries to look like the thing. So here we have like the old version and then the modern character. So this is meant to look like a person. This is meant to look like a mountain. I think that one's a little bit better. Meant to look like the sun, meant to look like the moon, meant to look like a tree. Okay, so I don't know that really looks like a tree. It kind of looks like a lizard to me, but that's what represents tree. Okay, so it looks like the thing it's representing. And again, I mean, this does not look very much like the sun, and it's now square instead of round, but we do what we can. So pictographs. That's the first classification of Chinese character. The second classification is ideograms, simple ideograms. And this is what I'm talking about. You don't have to remember 象形. You don't have to remember that that's what a pictograph is called, or even that this is a pictograph. You just have to know the idea. So ideograms. This is when you can't represent the thing itself, you can represent an idea, right? Ideogram, idea. So here we have above, where you have the short line above the long line, and then you write it here, shang. And then here you have the short line below the long line, so that represents below, xia. So shang and xia are ideas, okay? Because they're not a physical object, so you can't represent them with a picture. But you can represent them, you can represent the idea. All right, compound ideograms are two things put together or more than two things put together, compound, to show an idea. So here you have the sun, you have the moon. They are two bright objects in the sky. You put them together and the meaning of the word is bright, 明. So here we also have a person leaning up against a tree representing the idea of rest. Okay, so person leaning back against a tree, they are resting. So that's the idea that's being represented here. Now, this is probably the most common one, 形声. So pictophonetic characters. You don't need to remember that word, but it just means that one element is giving you the meaning of the word in some sense. One element of the character is giving you part of the sound. It gives you an idea of the sound. But let's pull out, I actually really don't like this as an example because it's jiang and this is go. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to just delete that. So let's first look at this character over here. We'll pull it over here. So these three dots at the beginning represent water. Okay, so that gives you some idea of the meaning. It will have something to do with water. And then this character, when written by itself, 可, is pronounced 可. And that gives you some idea of the sound. So when we add them together, we get this character, which is actually pronounced 河, and it means river. So it has something to do with water, and we have some indication of the pronunciation. 可 becomes 呵, so it's a different initial, but it has that same vowel sound, and it gives us this word 河, meaning river. I think this one is fan. This bit means food. This bit is pronounced fan, so you know. And then I'm going to give you another one. So this is the character for woman, and this, oh, it is kind of hard to write on here. Whatever, is the character for horse, and this is the one that's pronounced ma with a third tone. So when you put them together, you end up with mama, right? And I've kind of overlapped these characters. That's not good. Don't do that. But for a stylus on a computer, I think it's all right. So this gives us the pronunciation ma, and this tells us that it's something to do with woman, and put the characters together and it means mom. Okay, so many characters in Chinese are this pictophonetic character. Not all of them, but I think somewhere I read something like 70% of characters take this on. Moving on to the last two. These are the two that are a little bit more abstract. So 转句, mutually explanatory characters. And all that means is that this character is like a character on its own, pretty much. It doesn't look like anything. It doesn't represent an idea. It's just there to show you the sound. And then the next one, 假借, which is phonetic lone character, which also basically just means that it was a sound, the pronunciation, right? The pronunciation of this character was similar to another character until they created this new character for this new word. That's not those two, honestly, you don't really have to know. You'll just have to know things like this is 来, meaning come, and this is 我, meaning I or me. And they don't look like anything. They don't represent ideas. They just maybe originally had a different sound, and you would never know by looking at them anyway. Okay, so radicals. This one's actually quite important, but this is one of those things that's confusing until you get into it. Okay, until you start using them, practicing with them, this is going to be a little bit abstract. But these are important, and you will have to know something about these. So a radical is like, if you come back to the previous page, why can't I go back? Okay, it won't let me go back. I'm not sure why. But where I was showing you, like, here, we'll come over here, where I was showing you that this represented water, and then you had the k bit of it. This bit is what we call a radical. I also think, I mean, go back and read this, but it's not all that helpful in explaining what a radical is. But it basically, it's a component of a Chinese character. Right, so here we have the character for person, 人, and occasionally you'll see it, so here you'll see it up at the top, and occasionally you'll see it at the front of a character. It's a component of a character, and it's a bit squished, okay, into this shape instead of the full 人, and put at the beginning of a character, okay? Typically, again, that gives you maybe some kind of indication of the meaning. Not always, but this, might have something to do with people. And in fact, well, this character is Jin today. This character, though, here is he. Dao is knife. So here you can see it in this bit of the character. Here you can see it at the end of the character, and I didn't get a very good picture of this page. But I do encourage you, I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to encourage you to go through and read through these pages. Obviously, there's not actually a lot on the page, so it shouldn't take you too long, but look at the characters and then look at the examples, and just see where in the example characters you can find these characters as elements, if that makes sense. So, like, go in here and say, okay, kou, meaning mouth. Where am I looking for it? Oh, I'm looking for it right here, and I'm looking for it right there. Okay? So just see where you can find it as a component of the other characters. And here's that one I was talking about before, water. So the character for water by itself, I actually just wrote that wrong, and you'll see why in a second, is shui, meaning water, and then when it's a radical, it gets changed, it gets squished a little bit into 3 dots. Okay? Now, these are radicals, they are components of Chinese characters, they are important, but they're a bit abstract until you start using them regularly. So probably this is a kind of page that we'll look at now, and then we might start to refer back to, and then as you see it in use, you'll kind of have that moment of, oh, okay, that's what that means. Moving right along. Structure, the structure of Chinese characters. And you'll notice this because you're going to start using your character workbook this week to practice writing. But writing, and when you practice writing in a box. Okay? So each character, in theory, kind of takes up a box of space. And there are 9 sort of makeups of characters. So there's either unitary, which is just it fits in the box. So for example, this word shang just fits in the middle of the box. Gosh, it's hard to write on this screen. Okay, but it just goes straight in the middle. That's how it works. And then there's left, right. Okay, so components go here. So there's 2 components here, a left one and a right one. So you will write here and here. Whatever. Okay, top and bottom. Yeah, that one's complicated. Let's do it. All right. So, there we go. Z has a top and a bottom. Semi-enclosing. That's this bit where you have something around it, but it's not closed off at the bottom. Okay. I'm not going to keep writing these because actually that'll make this video longer, but you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so semi-enclosing, you have something that's not closed at the bottom, and you'll see there are different ones. So you've got this kind, you've also got this one. These are different. This one has a dot at the top and it's a bit open. This one, you go out at the end. But these are all semi-enclosing, so there will be something around and something in the middle. Enclosing. So that's where there is some element that's completely enclosed within a box. All right, some element completely enclosed within a box. Horizontal 3 sections, so this has 1, 2, 3 sections. 1, 2, 2, 3 sections, okay, horizontally or vertically. So here we have 1, 2, 3 components making that up. And then left bottom enclosing. I think enclosing is not the best word. It's more like a frame, like a half frame, right? So you've got this bit here, or you've even got this whole bit here, or here. So those are the enclosing, and then there's another element kind of resting within it. And same here, you have kind of something on the top and the left, top and the left, top and the left, and then there's some element within that frame. Okay? Not something you have to memorize, just something you'll find as you start practicing character writing. Now, strokes. Also, my PowerPoint, some of my titles are way out of the thing. Oh well. Strokes, basic strokes. So, I'll tell you a secret. I never learned the names of the strokes. This is one thing you, not never. I didn't until about 3 or 4 years ago. When I was a student, I didn't learn them, and it didn't really make a difference until I was trying to write some things on the board for my students in China, and I realized I type a lot in Chinese, so I realized I didn't remember exactly how to write the character, and my students were trying to help me by telling me the name of the next stroke, and I didn't know the name of the strokes. So this one is a bit important, but not important enough to stress over, if that makes sense. So first we've got dian, which is a dot. Okay, here is the dot, here is the dot. Actually, you'll find that this is not a dot and this is not a dot because it goes, this one goes the wrong way, this one is too long. So dian is a dot. But actually the character for dian has 3 dian in it, but not this one. Heng is a horizontal stroke. So here we have 1 heng, here we have 1 heng. Shu, vertical, so vertical, vertical. Pie. Now this one is actually a slightly weird one. Almost all strokes go from left to right and top to bottom. This one actually goes from right to left, downward left. So there and there is where you see those characters, or those strokes, I should say. Na. So in this one, you actually have a pie, na. This one the same. Pie, na, pie, na. So downward left, downward right, upward. Now this is the other kind of awkward character, so we'll put 2 little stars next to those. So everything goes top to bottom, left to right, except for this one, which goes right to left, and this one, which goes up. So that's why those are different. And you can kind of see here how it's thicker at the top to indicate that's where you start and go down, and then this one thicker at the bottom and you go up. So here we have it in this stroke and that stroke. Okay. Moving on, heng go, which is made up of heng, which is horizontal, and go, which is a hook. So you have a horizontal hook or a vertical hook, so heng go and shu go. Xie go as well, which is a slanted hook. And then you have hung, again, that's horizontal, and shu, vertical. Horizontal bend or vertical bend. So, hengzhi and shuzhi, dianheng shu, you don't, as I said, I got away with not knowing the names of the strokes, but it is a helpful thing to know and may come in very handy for you someday, but don't stress too much about it yet. All right, we're getting there. Stroke order. Now, this is the last thing we're going to cover. Stroke order is just a kind of list of rules for how you write characters, because you want to be writing them the same way every time. And there are these 6 main rules. They're, again, once you start practicing them, you'll just kind of notice that you do this automatically. But here we have left to right. So you would always do this stroke first, then middle, then outside. Okay, left to right. Here we have left to right. Top to bottom, so 1, 2, 3. Horizontal before vertical, so heng, shu. Outside to inside, which means you will start on the outside and then do anything from within. Middle before 2 sides. Now this one is tricky because when it's a character like this, which is xiao, which means small, you do the kind of J, the hook, the shugou, and then you do the, whoops, okay, dian, okay. But what this does not mean is in those boxes we were talking about, where there are boxes that have 3 elements to a character, you do not do the middle element first. You go left to right. This is only for instances like this character Xiao. So this one is actually kind of a bit of a confusing rule, but you'll find, for example, the heart radical. If you go back to that radical page, looks like this, and when you write that element, you write it like this. So you write the line first and then the 2 dots on the other side. Okay, that's where that rule comes into play. And 6th, last one, do the inside before closing an enclosed character. So what this means is if you're writing this word sun, it's one of the first ones we looked at today, you always start, so we start left to right, and it does say horizontal before vertical, but in this case the first one is vertical. The next one is like this, so that is the hengzhi. So shu, hengzhi, and then you do the inside before finishing the box. So there's your other hung and your final hung to close the box. And I'm going to show you a few examples of this. So when you write a box, you always write the box in 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So for example, hui, which we saw in the last one, is 1, 2, but we can't close it until we do what's inside, which in the case of this one is another box. So 1, 2, close the box, close the box. Okay, this is hui, it means return. Or here's a semi-enclosing one, so we work outside to inside, left to right, top to bottom, close the box, and that's tong, which means same. Okay. Let me see if there are some other characters I can write for you. Let's see, something like, so Ming, okay, tomorrow, or bright. So you have, sorry, let me try again. I'll draw the whole box for you so you can see the whole thing. Okay, this one has 2 elements, okay? So the first element is sun. So we draw a box, we finish what's inside before closing, and then the second bit of it, we go left to right, and then we finish what's inside. We don't have to close this one, okay? So that's how you write Ming, which is bright. Okay, I'm going to stop it here because that's I don't want to take up too much more of your time just writing characters for you, but hopefully this has started to make sense. And again, so that is the one thing that is important to remember is the stroke order. I mean, you do need to know all of this, but the thing that will maybe not come so naturally is the stroke order. But just remember, left to right, top to bottom, outside to inside, those are the main ones that you'll come across as you practice. And when you work in your character workbook, which this is your assignment for the week, character workbook, page 1 to 16. So you will be doing quite a bit of practice, and they will teach you the stroke order in the character workbook. So you'll practice writing the first stroke, then writing the first 2 strokes, then the first 3. So you learn the stroke order as well. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. And that was hopefully the last sort of theory, boring thing that we had to do before getting into next week's more interesting actual dialogues. So, see you soon.